Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Andy, and welcome to this week's Team Kentucky Update. We're going to start this week where we always start, with our red-hot economy and great news on the economic development front. This new year has brought new investments and new jobs as companies decide to make our Commonwealth their new Kentucky home, a place where the speed of business is fast, but the pace of life is just right. In just a little over 5 years, we've now announced more than 1,100 private sector new location or expansion projects, totaling a record $35 billion in private sector investment and creating a record 59,800 new jobs. Just last week, we added to that number with our first announcement of 2025 right here in Frankfort, Kentucky. Nito, a global developer of state-of-the-art technology for automotive, electronics, aerospace, and other industries, is opening a new facility in Franklin County, creating 220 full-time jobs. We continue to see quality companies like Nito expanding to meet growing consumer demand, and that's a recipe for long-term success for our Kentucky economy. I want to thank Nito's leadership for their new investment, including company president Yukihiro Horikawa, and Darren Begoni, their supply chain VP. I look forward to seeing Nito's continued growth in our state. We also have a message from Franklin County Judge Executive Michael Mueller, who could not be with us here today.
Judge Executive Michael Mueller, sorry I couldn't be with you today. I just want to thank the governor and Team Kentucky for all they've done to help land this amazing factory here in Franklin County. This is the biggest job announcement in Franklin County since 2010. 220 jobs and their families will be joining us here, and that's exciting. I want a special thanks to Penny Peebler, our interim economic development specialist, Patrick and Ron Tierney for having the facility available for this company to locate in. And I want to say a special thanks to our fiscal court. You know, we worked very hard. We had this property come in front of us for zoning a couple years ago, and it was some tough decisions, but I believe we can see now it was the right decision and how important things like this are for our community. So again, on behalf of Franklin County, Governor, thank you, and Frankfort is on the move, and this is just the first of many announcements.
Well, thanks to the judge for all of his work. He mentioned the developers of the building, the Tierneys. They have worked really closely with economic development, helping us land a number of businesses from Clark County to now Franklin County, and we appreciate their work. Today, we also have some announcements from our disaster recovery program. Last year, we marked the 2-year anniversary of the floods in Eastern Kentucky. We made a promise to be there for our people until every home and every life was rebuilt, and we're continuing to make good on that promise. First up, we have some good news for the city of Jackson. The city of Jackson's been through a lot. The city of Jackson flooded both in 2021 and 2022. We were close to a significant failure of a dam in both years that would have caused even more damage. And we've been working with the city because of the challenges of finding more high ground land, and knowing one of the things we've got to do for Jackson is to make it more resilient and how it deals with rain and with flooding. So far, in and around Jackson, we've announced plans to build 28 homes, each of those outside the floodplain. And today we're announcing funds to help the city be prepared for future events. Today, I get to announce we're providing $4.8 million to conduct a storm water movement study within the city. This includes an evaluation of the storm water infrastructure, developing a storm water management plan, and helping to construct storm water infrastructure. So we're not just looking at recovery, we're looking at prevention through these dollars of future floods. In addition to that funding, we're also providing $3 million to replace water lines that were impacted by the floods. These water lines are along Quicksand Road. The Quicksand project ensures water safety by installing new, upgraded water lines that will better handle any large future rains. We have a video from Jackson Mayor Laura Thomas.
Hi, I'm Laura Thomas, Jackson Mayor, and we are so excited to hear the news that Governor Beshear will be announcing disaster funding on 2 of our critical infrastructure projects The quicksand project will replace the water line that's been impacted by persistent flooding over the years, and that project will help us provide safe, reliable drinking water in the quicksand area. And then the stormwater funding, that project will help us develop a stormwater management plan that we can implement to minimize the effects of water runoff and stormwater to our buildings and our homes and our streets. And so it's very important to us that we get these projects, and I want to thank Governor Beshear and Team Kentucky for helping us secure the funding, and a big shout out to City of Jackson employees who show up and do a great job in all of this bad weather. I really appreciate you. Thanks all.
Well, thank you to Jackson Mayor Thomas for the great job she does, and a good day for the city of Jackson. $7.8 million headed their way. We also have good news for Letcher County. From the Disaster Recovery Program, we're providing $4.2 million to replace over 8,000 feet of water lines and replace 2 pump stations, which will improve water pressure. These lines were damaged during the floods. If you think about that much water going through the system, the system couldn't handle it. It can burst many of those pipes, and it left them prone to breaks and certainly to leaks. We have a video from Letcher County Judge Executive Terry Adams on this $4.2 million project.
This is Letcher County Judge Executive Terry Adams. I'd like to take a minute to thank Governor Beshear and his staff for their input on us obtaining a CDBG-DR grant to replace some water line infrastructure here in Letcher County. This will replace the line along Highway 1410. This line gives us issues from time to time of coming apart. And when it comes apart, we not only lose water storage, but it costs us from $8,000 to $10,000 per incident to get it repaired. This will also replace the 2 pumping stations here in Letcher County that have aged out. We appreciate all the assistance from the governor, and thank you very much.
Thanks to Judge Adams for the job he continues to do to rebuild in Letcher County. Our last announcement today is for the City of Jenkins, which is in Letcher County. We're providing $5.2 million to also conduct a stormwater study. It'll determine the best measures they can take to prevent flooding in the future. The expectations of the study are the construction of a new stormwater system and the clearing of channels where water currently drains. And today we're also announcing $1.4 million to the City of Jenkins to make improvements in the wastewater treatment plant in their town. The plant suffered damage during the floods. We're working with Jenkins to make the necessary repairs and to help our people in that city move forward. We have a video from Jenkins Mayor Todd DePriest about these projects.
This is Todd DePriest, Mayor for the City of Jenkins, and we're here today to talk about announcements being made for the wastewater treatment plant and for our stormwater projects through the Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery. $1.4 million for the wastewater treatment plant is going to be used to upgrade the plant to help build capacity to make the processes better. And that's important to us because of the high ground site and the economic development piece with our industrial park. So we're tickled to have this announcement and be able to proceed with these kind of projects to make all that possible. Also today, over $5.4 million being announced to stormwater. Stormwater is important to us because with the floods of 22, we understood just how outdated that our stormwater pieces was in the City of Jenkins. So that's going to be a study to be able to look at what's needed, how can we put green infrastructure pieces into that, how can we increase the quality of water downstream from us, and how can we manage storms that we're bound to get in the future. And again, I'm just grateful for these announcements and these projects that are available through Community Development Block Grants, disaster recovery pieces. And we want to really thank Team Kentucky and all their support. It's been a long go. We've got a while to go yet, but with their support, we're able to work on these projects and move forward. Also, a shout out to Secretary Gray and his team that at District 12 that's kept the road safe here lately in these storms. And we appreciate everything everybody at the state has done.
These are just a portion of 8 different grants being announced today for a total of $21 million. They'll each be listed in the press release that goes out right after the update. I also want to provide an update related to the recent winter storms. While I believe the response to them has been one of the best that we've seen in decades, we do have some sad news coming out of it. Tragically, the Kentucky Emergency Management and our Department for Public Health has now confirmed 6 deaths related to the ice and the snow we received from January 5th to January 11th. We lost a female in Spencer County due to an injury, and then we lost 5 men due to injuries or medical emergencies. They were from Breckenridge, Boone, Oldham, and Franklin counties. These losses are tragic to the communities these individuals lived in, tragic to their families. Each one of these Kentuckians is a child of God that will be missed by those around them. Brittany and I are praying for them and sending our love and support. I'm also sorry to report that many, if not most of these deaths were due to cardiac events from shoveling snow. And we talk about a lot of things during these storms. We talk about staying off the roads, which is probably the most dangerous. We talk about generator safety, which in the past has taken a number of lives. We now need to really start talking about shoveling safety as we move forward with any other winter events. We don't want to lose anybody else. So I want to encourage people as we move forward to shovel safely. This work is often dangerous, even if you might not think it is. Shoveling heavy, wet snow can cause back injuries, and it can cause heart attacks. And it can also make it harder, or make it take longer for first responders to get to you if you have a medical emergency. We don't want anybody to push themselves too hard. In addition to dressing warm and staying hydrated, we need people to shovel smaller amounts of snow and to take frequent breaks, even if you don't think you need them. Look, I know everybody wants to get their driveway shoveled as fast as they can and to get it behind them. But when we lose, 6 people to a storm like this, and we know some of it may have been preventable, we just want to make sure that people are careful. Again, when we get more snow or we face another one of these. So taking your time, doing it a little bit different could save your life. We care about you, and we want to make sure that you stay safe in any other storm we see. And speaking of other storms or weather events that we could see, the next wave of cold weather is set to enter the Commonwealth. So the next few days, the temperatures are going to rise a bit. But we need Kentuckians to be aware that more cold weather is on the way. Starting on Sunday, we are expecting Arctic air to bring dangerously low temperatures that will remain until Wednesday. Areas of Kentucky can expect wind chill conditions to be in the single digits at or below 0. In other words, it's going to be really, really cold. It's going to be dangerously cold. Temperatures are expected to only reach a high in the 10s and the 20s and drop to single digits overnight. We need everyone out there to stay safe. Check on your older relatives. Check on your neighbors. Make sure that you have plans to stay warm during this bitter cold. Warming centers will be available, and a map of warming centers has been posted on the KYEM website, which is kyem.ky.gov. People are encouraged to contact their local emergency management agency prior to arrival if possible. As always, be extremely careful with heat sources. Do not put generators inside your house, inside your garage. They need to be 20 plus feet away from your structure or your doors. You got to make sure that your extension cord is graded for outdoor use, especially as we see some melting. People who cannot reach their local 911 dispatch can call the 24-hour state warning point hotline at 1-800-255-2587. It should be only used if you're unable to contact local emergency services. So it's going to get really cold Sunday, really through Wednesday. So again, make sure you have power. Make sure that you're going to be able to stay warm during it. Bundle up significantly when you go outside. And if you need help, ask for it. Ask your family, ask your local emergency management. Let's get through this next bout of extreme cold and make sure everybody gets through it with us. Our hearts are also heavy right now for our fellow Americans in California. The greater Los Angeles wildfires have destroyed homes and taken a lot of lives. Sadly, we know the pain and the loss that comes with these types of natural disasters. Brittany and I are sending our love and our support to everyone affected. We have family near that area, very near that area. Thankfully, they're okay, but so many are not. Like we always do, we have offered to help in any way we can. When California put out a call through the Emergency Management Assistance Compact asking for specific firefighting teams and equipment, our Division of Forestry answered. They submitted a response, and then California evaluates all the responses that come in from around the country, and then they pick who they'd like to come and provide that assistance. So we are waiting on the call, and if we receive it, we will absolutely be there to help our fellow Americans dealing with a scope of a disaster that we're all too familiar with, though ours came with winds and with water. Kentucky stands ready to help, and my hope is that everyone on all levels of government can remove politics from this and just see people whose lives have been devastated, people who have lost every photo, perhaps every memory, have lost the homes that their kids learned to walk in. Now, this is hard on people. And remember, we are all Americans before we're members of any political party. Just we ought to be there to support our fellow human beings. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to the First Lady, who has some ways that the people here in Kentucky can help. Remember, so many answered the calls when we went through our tornadoes and our floods. This is our chance to provide a little bit of help to our fellow Americans.
First, I want to echo what Andy just said. We're keeping our neighbors in Southern California in our hearts as they come to terms with the horrible disaster that is continuing to unfold. When our own state faced the worst tornadoes and floods in our history, people came from across the country to donate relief to our they came from across the country, donated to our relief funds and to our 2 Christmas toy drives. Now, Team Kentucky can pay it forward by supporting families impacted by the wildfires as they rebuild their lives. As First Lady and as a mom, my top priority will always be protecting children and families. Like Andy said, we had so much love and support come into us, and it's our turn to help. A couple of ways that you have the ability to help is to donating to organizations like the World Central Kitchen. They were instrumental in helping in our recovery efforts here in Kentucky. If you want to focus on assistance for young children, you can also support Baby to Baby. It's an incredible organization which helps distribute diapers and other essential items to families in need. Even before this disaster, half of American families with babies said they struggle to afford diapers. I know Andy and I remember the cost of diapers for 2 at one time, so it is not an inexpensive undertaking. For these parents, diapers are typically the 4th highest household expense after food, rent, and utilities. Baby to Baby products, including diapers, in-house. Let me start over. Baby to Baby produces diapers in-house at 80% less than retail cost. So when you donate directly to them, your dollar goes even further in helping babies get the care they need. Andy's and my faith teaches us that everybody is our neighbor, and we talk about that a lot. One small act of kindness has ripple effects that we don't even know about. Sometimes it can feel really overwhelming when there is a disaster as large as what LA is looking at, but everybody can do something. So please look into either World Central Kitchen, Baby to Baby, or another organization that you like. If you want to support any of the organizations I just mentioned, please visit their websites, which are on the screen. The country was there for Kentucky when we needed them, so let's be there for our countrymen and women in California. We know that disaster recovery is a marathon, not a sprint. We will be there for our fellow Americans every step of the way. Our faith also teaches us that we are called to protect the most vulnerable. That's why today I also want to highlight Team Kentucky's efforts to rescue victims of human trafficking and to hold criminals accountable. Together, we can make sure survivors have the resources they need to heal. Across the United States and around the globe, as many as 24.9 million men, women, and children are victims of human trafficking. This horrendous crime is a modern form of slavery where people are exploited through violence, fraud, or coercion. It tears families apart and leaves victims fearful and hopeless, not knowing where to turn or whom they can trust. In January, we are recognizing Human Trafficking Prevention Month to raise awareness about this crime and educate the Kentuckians on how to recognize the signs and to take action. When Andy served as Attorney General, his office became the leading agency fighting this crime in Kentucky. He created the Office of Child Abuse and Human Trafficking Prevention and Prosecution. His office assigned staff to assist local law enforcement as they investigated this crime. They also trained thousands of individuals statewide to know the warning signs and report suspicious activity. His office also arrested a historic level of child predators. He also created the Survivors Council, which provided a way for survivors of violent crimes, including human trafficking, to advise and assist the office on issues that impacted them. I've been proud to advocate for survivors as a member of the National Coalition for the Prevention of Human Sex Trafficking. And our Kentucky State Police Troopers are dedicated to preventing and ending this crime in our state. This week, KSP participated in the Human Trafficking Awareness Initiative, an annual program from the Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance that teaches the sign to look for and what to do if you suspect someone is being trafficked. KSP also continues to educate the public by sharing this information on social media. In addition to KSP, I know there are so many other partners who are working to support and seek justice for victims and their families. Thank you. If you have any information to share with the authorities, please call or text the number on the screen or use the web chat at humantraffickinghotline.org. You can call 1-888-373-7888 or text 233-733. We are committed to helping prevent this crime, not just this month, but every day. I want to speak directly to Kentuckians who may be suffering from in silence. If you take that first step to ask for help, we will be with you every step of the way, making sure you have the resources you need to recover. Labor and sex traffickers often try to control victims in many different ways. That could include threats of violence, holding on to your money, ID, isolating you from your friends and family, by keeping doors locked to prevent you from leaving. Once again, if you are experiencing any of this, or if you know someone who is, please call or text the numbers on the screen to report it and seek help. This is not your fault. You deserve to be safe and protected. Thank you.
Today, I also want to provide a recap of my 6th State of the Commonwealth address that I delivered last Wednesday. I was happy to report that the state of the Commonwealth is strong and it's growing stronger. We're making progress like we've never seen before, and the rest of the country is noticing. Right now, all eyes are on Kentucky. And we've earned this attention through achievement and by getting things done for our people. We've broken record after record after record. And again, it's brought all of those eyes towards our work, seeing the great things that are happening in our Commonwealth. Over the past 5 years, we've announced over $35 billion of private sector investment in us in Kentucky. I'm proud to say that's the largest amount by far under any Kentucky governor. Over the same period, we've broken our job creation records, announcing 59,800 new, good full-time jobs through economic development. If you add in the tourism development jobs, that reaches 64,000 new jobs for our people. We've broken our all-time exports records, meaning business in Kentucky is now global. We've broken our tourism impact record in back-to-back years, and we believe we're going to break it a third straight year when 2024's numbers come in. At the same time, we've expanded access to healthcare and invested in cleaner water. We're building and repairing our roads and bridges. We're installing high-speed internet all across Kentucky. And we are keeping our promise to those that were impacted by natural disasters in both eastern and western Kentucky. Put simply, we're not looking at the same Kentucky anymore. That's why we're taking this historic moment to reintroduce ourselves to the world, to leave the stereotypes about Kentucky in the past, and to welcome people to our new Kentucky home, where the possibilities are endless and where we embrace new business, new chances to create and to grow together. And we keep talking about our new Kentucky home, where the pace of business is fast, but the pace of life is just right. A place where your business can be incredibly successful. And we think we're going to have some historic information on that in the coming weeks as well. But you can also live a good life. This is a place where you can provide hundreds of jobs, and your employees all live in their own Kentucky home, something that should be and is special to many of the CEOs that are out there. Kentuckians have so much to be proud of, and the great part's how we got here, by finding common ground, by applying common sense, and then making things happen for our Commonwealth. During my address, I also issued this warning. We must stop the attacks on public education. It's time to stop the voucher nonsense, and it's time to focus on funding and improving our public schools. To do so, our educators need better salaries. We must be competitive with the surrounding states if we are going to recruit the best, and our kids are going to get the best. Remember, many of our school systems, they're the number one employer in their region. When we underfund the salaries of our educators, we underfund so many of our own citizens. Our teachers, our educators, all of them deserve this raise, and our kids deserve it too. To do so, we must enact universal pre-K for all 4-year-olds. I believe this is one of the most important issues we're going to face in the 2026 budget session. Pre-K provides proven lifelong gains, and right now, we're behind our surrounding states. We are less competitive. And when parents of young children are looking at other states and what they offer, they could see that there are more opportunities in many places, that they could save significant dollars. We talk about being competitive in so many different ways. Why wouldn't we want to be competitive with the opportunities for our youngest learners and for those families that are going through such an important time? And without universal pre-K, we're failing our kids. More than 54% are showing up for kindergarten unprepared. So to anybody that criticizes our public schools, 54% of our kids are behind before they ever step into a public school. And the only way to address that, the only way to make sure that everyone starts on solid footing is to enact universal pre-K. And folks, right now, what would that mean? It would mean 34,000 additional Kentucky children get these services each year. Flip that around. It means we got 34,000 Kentucky kids that aren't going to pre-K right now, whose families desperately want a better life for their kids but can't afford it. That's 34,000 kids that are essential to our future every year that aren't getting off to the start that we should want them to get off to. Universal pre-K is also the single fastest, most effective thing we can do to boost our workforce in every part of Kentucky. Universal pre-K provides that help to parents for every 4-year-old, regardless of where they live, even where there are childcare deserts. Doing this through our public schools ensures that there is relief. We've got so many young parents that want to get back into the workforce, but the cost of pre-K, plus its absence in many places, makes it impossible. You look at the number of federally funded childcare slots right now for 4-year-olds. It would open up to 3-year-olds, and we'll get so many people back into our workforce at least 2 years earlier. So for all those employers out there who are looking at the most effective means to boost the number of people that are looking to come to work for them, this is your issue. This is how we make sure that your jobs are filled. This is how we make sure you continued unsurpassed success that we are seeing around Kentucky. And we can do this together simply by doing something that is really good for all of our Kentucky children. And sadly, it's gotten a little partisan, but how can we let partisanship impact how we're treating our 4-year-olds and getting them off to the start that they deserve? And I finally, in that state of the Commonwealth, talked about keeping our success going means we got to take how we live our daily lives as Kentuckians, how we treat each other, and apply it to Frankfort too. Kentuckians are folks that help each other regardless of their politics, that don't yell at their neighbors simply because they have different opinions. Don't try to punish each other for doing what they think is right and doing their jobs. If we can take the pettiness, the vindictiveness, the theater out of some of the things that go on in and around state government, think about how much we can accomplish. Think about if we're not worried about who gets credit, and we have a good opportunity for our people. And that's why we show up every day. That the first thing we think about for any policy is not the politics, but will it work and will it be helpful? That's how we continue to push ahead. The reasons we've been successful these past years is better than most states. We've pushed out that national noise and we've focused on those core issues that matter most to our people. That's a good job. That's being able to afford your next doctor's appointment. That's safe roads and bridges you travel on every day. That's good public schools, and it's public safety in your communities. That's how we move our Commonwealth forward, to push out all that toxic noise and just focus on each other and creating the best life for Kentuckians. I ended by saying that I pray that God grants us the ability to see beyond the anger or the hostility or the division of today to the promise of tomorrow. And if we are able to do that here in Kentucky, while others out there are likely failing, we'll continue to be seen in this world as more and more and more special. And I can't wait until next week at the World Economic Forum when I get to tell our story, our successes. Everything that this state has been able to do these last 5 years is so incredible. And everyone out there, every one of our citizens deserves credit for it. And I'm proud that the world wants to see what we've done and learn from us, finally looking up to us instead of looking down on us. So I will do my best to do us all proud in Davos here next week. Also next week, Americans will celebrate the remarkable legacy and work of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Born in Atlanta, Georgia, Martin Luther King Jr. was a visionary, a true public servant. He was committed to justice, equality, and fairness for all of our people. Martin Luther King Jr. was a man of faith who first used his God-given talent to make change during the Montgomery bus boycott. He founded the Southern Christian Leadership Conference and most notably led the March on Washington. Martin Luther King Jr.'s work did not stop there. He was instrumental in the passage of the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act, and he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1964. In Kentucky, Dr. King led the March on Frankfort, where 10,000 Kentuckians marched, calling for an end to discrimination and segregation. Soon after, Kentucky became the first state in the South to pass a state civil rights act. 57 years after Dr. King's tragic death, his work continues to remind us of all of our responsibility to make sure that prosperity reaches every single Kentuckian, especially those Kentuckians that prosperity has eluded for a long time. I understand that I will never be able to feel the historical and ever-present weight of racism, of inequity, of injustice, but I've promised and I continue to promise I will listen. I will work to hear, and I will work with those incredible leaders out there that have been doing this noble work for decades, and together we will be intentional and we will make change. As Dr. King once said, when one commits oneself to the noble struggle for equal rights, they make themselves a better person. They make a greater nation of their country, and they make a finer world to live in. And there is no more important mission than that. That's why in our new Kentucky home, we continue to take intentional steps so that all of us move forward together and no one is left out. Last year, we worked to establish Juneteenth as an executive branch holiday. The legislature might not be willing to pass legislation like so many states, red or blue or otherwise, have, but I was going to do my part to make sure we're doing the right thing. And I also signed an executive order prohibiting discrimination based on hairstyles historically associated with race in the workplace. Over the past 5 years, we've expanded healthcare in African American communities and signed legislation to support our HBCUs. Brittany and I are proud that when our kids graduate from high school, they'll graduate from an associate's degree with Kentucky State University, our only public HBCU. We opened Norton Healthcare's first hospital, the first hospital in West Louisville in 150 years. We removed the statue from Jefferson Davis in our state capitol because every child and every person that walks into that rotunda ought to feel valued and important. And we worked hard to get then Colonel Charles Young upgraded to General first through a posthumous promotion through our Kentucky National Guard. I was able to do that. And then President Biden made it official through the Army. So now, as we look back, having corrected a racial injustice of the past, the first African-American general in the history of the U.S. Army came from Mayslick in Mason County, Kentucky. And that's something we should all be proud of. In Scripture, we're told, let us be concerned for one another, to help one another, to show love, and to do good. When we work together, when we push out the hate and division, when we listen and we learn, when we are intentional with our actions and decisions, we can and we do make a difference. We still have a long way to go to make Dr. King's dream a reality. But as he said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We must continue taking those small steps that turn the inches into the feet, into the miles of progress, because every Kentuckian deserves to reach their full potential. No Kentuckian should ever have racism or discrimination pulling them back. Our job, for me, it's my faith, is to try to make sure that everyone is truly our neighbor, treated well, with full opportunity to achieve in this country. And Dr. King showed us the way a long time ago on this, and honoring him and his legacy is absolutely critical as we continue to work to get his vision more of a reality. Finally, our Team Kentucky All-Stars this week are the folks over at the Lincoln Trail Area Development District. I visited the region yesterday to see their new aerial search and rescue drones. They took dollars that they could have put in a lot of places, and they thought about what's next, knowing that we'll have another natural disaster. They thought about what's next, even though they hadn't been directly hit. They knew they would in the future, and they wanted to be there for every other part of Kentucky. In many ways, the parable of the Good Samaritan, making sure that you understand that everyone's your neighbor, and the golden rule of being there for them and loving them, they were showing. These drones are going to be able to help us in finding people who need help during widespread disasters. They can do thermal heat imaging to find people in places that may be hard. They can help us with the damage survey so that we can get disaster declarations sooner. And when they're not dealing with a major disaster, they can help find missing persons. So many different ways that these drones are going to help. The achievement was made possible because of teamwork. First, Daniel London and his team at the Lincoln Trail Area Development District, all the judges that make up the leadership of that area development district, the emergency managers, and those in the private sector. We had a bank that also helped in funding this. These are just acts of love that are also very smart ways to think about the future that help us to be better prepared. It was a great event, and just seeing so much of the community turning out, just wanting to do the right thing and to help people was really special. So congratulations, you are this week's Team Kentucky All-Stars. All right, we have 4 journalists. One is here with us in studio. We'll start with Carolina from WLEX.
Governor, I have 2 for you today. The winter storms hit Lexington and Fayette County pretty badly. Kids just went back to public school today. There are a lot of residents that are fed up with how long it took to clear side streets. I know this is a local issue when it comes to snow response, but have you been in contact with city officials? Do you believe that the response was sufficient? Is there anything that the state can do to assist in the future?
We're happy to assist in the future and to talk about our approaches. I understand being frustrated parents with your kids not being in school, and I am a Fayette County Public Schools graduate. I hope both the city and and Fayette County are both looking at this situation saying, we need to get back in sooner in the future. What are all the steps that we could have or should have taken, even if we've just learned about them through this experience? How can we at least give confidence to the community and to parents of school-aged children that we're going to do better next time? I believe that's who Superintendent Liggins is. I know that's who Mayor Gorton is. But my hope, having not had a chance to speak to them on this yet, is that they're doing that work right now, and hopefully they can present to their residents and to their parents what types of extra steps can be taken in the future. When you look at the overall state response, we've got very clear roadways, but I know that we need those in all of our cities, and it may be more challenging on our bigger cities, but that doesn't mean we can't do more. It doesn't mean we can't plan more. Just like after every natural disaster, we've tried to improve.
And then my second question is, unless there's some type of intervention, the TikTok app will be banned in the United States within a few days. There are quite a bit of Kentucky creators on that app. So that's where they make their money from, and of course they are concerned about this. Just curious, what are your thoughts on this impending ban?
Well, my hope is that there can be a fix with TikTok where the Chinese government isn't owning large portions or most of it and isn't taking all of that data for whatever use they want. I think we can both recognize that there are folks that really enjoy TikTok, folks that make their living on TikTok, and that the current structure of TikTok is against our national interests and could harm our national security, like so many things. It's not just black or white. And hopefully by this deadline, there will be something worked out where we don't have national security concerns on TikTok. So we're watching it very closely. Okay, next, Tom Latek.
All right, thank you, Governor, and good afternoon to you. Century Aluminum has gotten a $500 million grant from the U.S. Department of Energy for a clean aluminum smelter, which I believe Kentucky is one of the proposed sites for this, I believe in the Ashland area. Are you involved at all in this process? And can you tell me the nature of any involvement?
Well, we've had significant conversations with Century Aluminum under their application to the Department of Energy. They only receive the $500 million if they construct that facility in Kentucky. I know the company for a little bit had a different interpretation of that, but I clarified that with the two of the top three officials in the Department of Energy. So if Century Aluminum wants $500 million to help build that facility, it's got to be in this Commonwealth. We're waiting to get the latest feedback from Century Aluminum, and we hope they'll go forward with that project. Karen Czar, WKY.
Thank you, Governor. I have two. First off, have you had a chance to look at the lawsuit filed against the state by the group of students earlier this week regarding education not being equitable and having enough quality as mandated? What is your reaction to that suit? And then secondly, Brown-Forman announced that they were going to reduce their global workforce by, I think, 12%, and then closing the Louisville barrel making plant. And the company is saying one of the reasons is expected tariffs. How do you think this is going to affect Kentucky's economy? And are you concerned other businesses in the state might follow suit? Thank you.
Thank you. I haven't had a chance to fully review the lawsuit filed by the Student Voice team, but I've had concerns about whether the appropriations from the state legislature are meeting the Rose standard set many years ago. In Rose, Kentucky's then highest court said that our Constitution requires enough funding to provide a good education for all of our students statewide. And each of my budgets, we've asked for more funding. We've asked for more funding to go into salaries. We've asked for more funding to go into technology. We've asked for more funding so that teachers weren't having to pay their own continuing education. And the legislature has done less. So I think this is going to be a very important lawsuit, in the very least, to evaluate those appropriations by the General Assembly. And my hope is that they won't just immediately bristle, but they will look at what that law is, being lawmakers, and we will work to better fund each and every one of our public schools. My belief is that if there hadn't been so much time spent on trying to send public dollars to private schools, then maybe we could have already addressed this in a better way. But now Amendment 2 has been resoundingly defeated by over 30 points in Kentucky. Hopefully, that means that the majorities are ready to roll up their sleeves and say our job is to make our public schools the very best that they can be. And that's not interfering with their day-to-day operations, but making sure they have the resources needed to ultimately make things happen for our students. On the Brown-Forman side, this is an initial action. We may see some others in or around the industry. We saw during the first Trump administration that the tariffs that the Trump administration put out there on foreign countries resulted in a bourbon tariff from at least the EU. And we saw tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars of impact on exports that the bourbon industry was just recovering from. Every indication I've seen is that if the Trump administration engages in these blanket pardons, if the Trump administration engages in the blanket tariffs that we are at least reading about, that we are likely to get another bourbon tariff. And that will be incredibly detrimental to our Kentucky economy. It will impact Kentucky in a way that it will impact no other state. And so a state, again, that voted for President Trump by 30 points will get hit incredibly hard. So my hope is the administration will see that and will be very surgical in these tariffs. We'll be willing to negotiate back and forth, and we'll work to ensure that we don't see those bourbon tariffs from other countries. But there's no question that we see the bourbon industry incredibly worried about the impact of any tariffs that might come out of the Trump administration and the retaliation that we'd likely see. I just close by saying that's not me being a Democratic governor versus a new Republican administration coming in. That's me being the governor of Kentucky, talking about a signature industry that's important to us, and that's me telling you the truth. Finally, Isaiah Kim Martinez.
Hey, Governor, thank you. I just wanted to reference there seems to be a bipartisan call on a state level for urging Congress to amend federal law to allow for medical marijuana users to maintain their gun rights. Is that something you support, and would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I think that originally this was unintentional, but it does appear that federal law that we cannot change restricts the gun rights of those that participate in a state medical marijuana program. I think the right way to deal with that is not just to focus on that issue, but to change the schedule of marijuana. Marijuana continues to be treated like it's fentanyl or one of these drugs that sadly take the lives of our people every day or every week. I mean, what we need to change is the overall marijuana policy by the federal government. And this is just one of a number of different impacts that we see with the federal government not changing, not accepting reality or where the future is versus the states who are moving into that future. Listen, veterans with PTSD, they deserve relief and they shouldn't have to forfeit any part of Second Amendment rights or any other rights that they have under Kentucky law or any other state law. All right, we'll be back in 2 weeks. We'll be at the World Economic Forum next week. We're going to try to provide as many updates from the World Economic Forum as possible. Kentucky is going to be on stage a bunch. I think we are 5 to 6 different events that we are there on stage on different panels or presentations. So again, I'm just really excited to tell our story, tell Kentucky's story, tell your story to the world so we can continue this best economic development win streak that we've ever seen. Wouldn't be going if I didn't think that we couldn't bring jobs home, if we couldn't bring opportunity home. And I'm really excited to share both the experience and I think all the interest and ultimate advancement that we're going to get out of it. So everybody stay warm, especially Sunday through Wednesday when it gets really cold. Take care of each other and be careful shoveling the snow and ice. Thank you all very much.